I, 29 male, am an actuary. My ex-fiancée was a polar opposite. She was whimsical, free-spirited, and believed in the power of the universe. For 3 years, it worked. The wedding planning was a nightmare, but not because of my fiancée initially. It was her mother. My former future mother-in-law is a woman who wears designer tracksuits, claims to be an empath who feels the world's pain, yet treats service staff like they're invisible garbage. She didn't contribute a dime to the wedding fund, which my fiancé and I were covering entirely, yet she had opinions on everything from the thread count of the napkins to the molecular structure of the vegan pâté. I bit my tongue for months because I loved her daughter and I thought we were a team. 2 months before the wedding, her mother called an emergency meeting. She sat us down in her living room, which smells permanently of burnt sage and expensive perfume that tries too hard to cover the scent of desperation. She clutched her chest, looking like she was having a medical episode. But I knew better. It was purely theatrical. She told us she had a disturbance in the ether, and that we absolutely could not send out the invitations until I had been read by her spiritual counselor. Now, the spiritual counselor is her mother's go-to person for everything. She consults this woman before buying a car or investing in stocks, investments she invariably loses money on. I tried to shut it down immediately, explaining we were on a tight schedule and I didn't have time for nonsense, but my fiancée grabbed my hand. She gave me that look, the one that usually made me cave, pleading that we just needed to do it to calm her mother down. She said it was just an hour of my time to keep the peace. I looked at my fiancée, who looked exhausted, and I made the mistake of agreeing. We went to the psychic's sanctuary, which was a rented office space in a strip mall right next to a vape shop. The woman looked exactly how you'd expect. Lots of velvet, heavy eyeliner, and a gaze that assessed the value of my watch rather than the state of my soul. She laid out tarot cards, burned some herbs that made me sneeze, and hummed for a bit. Then she stopped cold. She recoiled from me as if I were radioactive. She told her mother that this was grave. She pointed a manicured finger at me and said I carried an ancestral curse, a dense, black energy clinging to my financial sector. She claimed that if we married without intervention, my energy would consume the family's fortune and that I was a spiritual black hole. I almost laughed in her face. My financial sector is impeccable. I have a diversified portfolio and 0 debt. But her mother snapped at me to be silent. The psychic shook her head sadly and said the wedding couldn't happen unless we performed the ritual of the golden sun. It required rare crystals, holy water imported from a specific spring in Peru, and a sacrifice of wealth to balance the scales. When I asked the price, she didn't blink. $8,500. Cash, to keep the transaction pure. I stood up and told them absolutely not, that this was a shakedown. My fiancée cried out, asking if I was putting a price on our happiness. Her mother turned red, calling me arrogant and saying this was exactly the bad energy the psychic was talking about. She threatened to forbid the marriage if I didn't pay to clean my aura. We left in a screaming match. On the ride home, instead of apologizing for her mother's insanity, my fiancée turned on me. She asked why I had to be so difficult and pointed out that I make plenty of money. So why couldn't I just pay it so we could have peace? That was the moment the glass cracked. It wasn't about the money. It was that she respected a strip mall grifter more than she respected my judgment. For 3 days, her mother bombarded her with texts about how toxic and cheap I was, and how the spirits were warning her. My fiancé was a wreck, refusing to eat or sleep, and finally gave me an ultimatum. Pay for the cleansing, or we postpone the wedding. I needed to know what was really going on. I'm an actuary. I look for patterns. I share a laptop with my fiancée, so while she was in the shower, I did some forensic accounting on our own lives. I checked her email outbox and found a thread between her and her sister. My fiancée wrote that I was resisting, and she didn't know if I'd pay. Her sister replied, telling her to cry more because I hate it when she cries, and reminding her that Mom owes $6,000 to that bookie in Atlantic City, and the psychic wants her cut for performance. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't superstition. It was conspiracy. My fiancée wasn't a victim. She was an accomplice. They were using my affection to pay off her mother's gambling debts. I didn't yell. I didn't confront them immediately. A cold, hard resolve set in. If they wanted a show, I'd give them a show. I walked into the living room where my fiancée was sulking and told her I had thought about it, and she was right. We couldn't start our marriage with negative energy. She lit up, thinking I was going to cut the check. I corrected her, saying that for $8,000, I needed to be sure it was done right. So I was bringing in a second opinion to oversee the ritual, a spiritual advisor from my side of the family. My fiancé was suspicious because I'm a man of science, but I lied and said he was very exclusive, usually only working with corporate executives in Tokyo and London. But he was flying in just for me. She called her mom, who was annoyed but agreed, assuming she could bulldoze whoever I brought. I called my college roommate, in his day job. He is a crisis management PR specialist for disgraced politicians. He destroys people for a living using words. He's also 6 feet 4 inches, possesses a voice like a foghorn, and can improvise a lie faster than most people can blink. I told him I needed him to be a high shaman, and out crazy the crazy. He said he'd bring his A game. The day of the ritual arrived. We met at the strip mall dungeon. Her mother was there, looking smug. My fiancé looked nervous. The psychic had set up a table with what looked like gravel from a fish tank and some glitter. I walked in, followed by my friend. He was wearing a bespoke black suit, dark sunglasses indoors, and carrying a briefcase made of alligator skin. He didn't say a word. He just walked to the corner of the room, took a tuning fork out of his pocket, struck it against the wall, and held it to his ear, grimacing in pain. Her mother demanded to know who he was. He introduced himself as a master of energy and announced that the room reeked of spiritual decay. When the psychic claimed she had purified the space, my friend sniffed the air and asked if she used sage from a gas station because the frequency was dissonant. He picked up one of the rare crystals, licked it, and spat it out, declaring it leaded glass with a vibrational value of 0. The psychic was furious, but my friend turned his sunglasses toward her mother and told her she was the source. He stepped into her personal space and said he saw a dark tether connecting her to Atlantic City, to the slot machines that were crying out for her. Her mother went pale. My fiancé gasped. My friend then spun on my fiancé, calling her the vessel who hides truth to feed the void, saying deceit was a cancer in her aura that rots the love bond. My fiancé started shouting for him to stop. Her mother screamed that they were there to cleanse my bad energy and demanded I pay the psychic so we could finish. My friend roared that the money was a poison. He opened his briefcase, which was empty except for a single large mirror. He held it up to her mother's face and told her to look at the hunger. He declared that my energy wasn't black, but blocked by a parasite. He turned to me, his face suddenly calm, and said I could not pay for the ritual. He warned that if I transferred a single cent, the universe would exact a penalty tenfold because the marriage wasn't cursed. The union was catastrophic. He pointed at her mother and my fiancé, saying they didn't seek a husband, they sought a host for their debts. Her mother hissed at us to get out. I looked at my fiancé and told her my friend was right. I said the heavy feeling wasn't a curse. It was my gut telling me I was being played. She screamed that I promised to pay. I told her I promised to fix the bad energy, and I just did. We walked out. My friend paused at the door to tell the psychic her business license had expired 3 months ago, and she needed to fix her feng shui. We got in my car, and as we pulled away, my phone blew up. Her mother texted that I had humiliated them and was evil. My fiancé texted asking how I could let him talk to her mother like that and to bring the money back. I drove straight to our apartment. I knew I had a limited window before they got back. I packed my essentials, laptop, documents, clothes, and took the dog. When my fiancée arrived an hour later, she brought her mother and her father, a quiet man who usually did whatever he was told. She stood in the doorway, eyes puffy, and told me I needed to apologize right now and write the check. I told her the wedding was off. Her mother started screaming about deposits and her reputation. I told her that her reputation was based on a lie. I revealed that I saw the emails and knew about the gambling debt. I told her father to check the joint account withdrawals from the last 6 months. Her father looked confused, saying his wife told him she needed money for my fiancé's grandmother's surgery. My fiancé tried to stop him from listening, but the cat was out of the bag. Her mother actually lunged at me, clawing at my face. I stepped back, and she tripped over a box. She screamed from the floor that she would sue me and take everything, claiming our engagement was a verbal contract. I told them to get out of my apartment. My fiancée yelled that it was our apartment. I corrected her. I bought it before we met. Her name isn't on the deed, and she had 24 hours to get her stuff out before I changed the locks. They left, but not before her mother spat on my floor. I thought the worst was over, but the entitlement was just warming up. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from my bank. An attempt to withdraw $5,000 from the joint checking account I had foolishly opened with my fiancée for wedding expenses. I had already drained and closed it the night before. Then came an email from a cheap lawyer demanding compensation for emotional distress totaling $50,000, reimbursement for all wedding deposits, palimony for the time my fiancée spent building my career, and ownership of the engagement ring. The ring was my great-grandmother's platinum setting with a sapphire center stone. It was a family heirloom worth more in sentiment than cash, but appraised around $12,000. I texted my fiancée to return the ring since the wedding was off. She replied that it was a gift and the law said she could keep it as payment for the years she wasted on me. Her mother posted a long rant on Facebook, tagging me indirectly, calling me a soulless number cruncher who abandoned her daughter because I refused to cleanse my demonic aura. Mutual friends started messaging me, some supportive, but the spiritual ones ate up her narrative. They assumed I would roll over to avoid drama. They forgot that I assess risk and calculate consequences for a living. I hired a real lawyer, a shark. He explained that in our state, an engagement ring is a conditional gift contingent on marriage. Since I broke it off due to fraud, specifically their attempt to extort money under false pretenses to pay a gambling debt, which we could prove with emails, we had a slam dunk case. We sent a counter demand. Return the ring in 48 hours. See social media slander, and repaid the $2,000 deposit my fiancée had charged my credit card for her dress. They ignored it. 2 days later, I came home to find my car keyed. A long, jagged scratch down the passenger side. My dash cam captured a figure in a distinctive designer tracksuit, swinging a set of keys. I called her father and told him his wife just committed a felony on camera and his daughter was holding stolen property. I said I was filing a police report in 1 hour. He sounded broken and begged me not to, saying she wasn't well. I told him she was a criminal and his daughter was protecting her. I went to the station, filed the report for vandalism, and handed over the footage. Then I went nuclear on the wedding contracts. Since I was a financial black hole, I had insisted on signing all vendor contract myself to track the budget. That meant I controlled cancellation policies. I canceled the venue, the caterer, and the florist. Here's the kicker. I found out my fiancée and her mother had gone behind my back and upgraded the flower package and wine list without telling me, signing addendums with their names as guarantors because I hadn't approved the budget increase. When I canceled the main contract, the vendors went after the guarantors for the non-refundable costs of the upgrades. Her mother was suddenly on the hook for $4,000 in premium orchids and vintage champagne. They showed up at my office the next day. My fiancée and her mother stormed past a receptionist. Her mother was waving invoices, screaming that I was ruining them, and I had to pay because I canceled the wedding. I calmly called security. My fiancée looked at me with cold eyes and said she hated me, that I counted every penny and had no soul. She just wanted the ring title, so it would stop. I told her I didn't have the ring. She did, and the police were on their way to her mother's house to ask about my car. Her mother turned white. I told her the universe demands balance. She took from me. Now she pays. Security escorted them out. I wasn't done. The bad energy accusations still irked me. I spent the weekend drafting a detailed tip to the IRS. I flagged the psychic's cash-only business model and her mother's frantic cash withdrawals and consulting payments that looked suspiciously like money laundering for gambling. Then I filed the civil suit for the ring. The court date for the ring was anticlimactic. My fiancée didn't even show up. Her lawyer, who looked like he regretted every life choice that led him there, handed the ring over to the bailiff in a velvet bag. The judge ruled in my favor in 5 minutes. citing the conditional gift laws and the evidence of fraud. I walked out with my great-grandmother's ring. I had it professionally cleaned and told the jeweler to buff out the eternal engraving. The aftermath was where the real satisfaction kicked in. The police investigation into the car vandalism gave her father the leverage he finally needed, faced with video. Evidence of his wife's instability and financial ruin she caused. The gambling debts were actually closer to $40,000. He filed for divorce. He also cut off my fiancée's allowance. Without her dad's money and without me to mooch off of, she had to move into a studio apartment. She tried to text me 3 months later at 2 a.m., saying the universe was punishing her and she missed our balance. I blocked her without replying. The psychic shop closed down a month after my tip. The IRS takes cash businesses very seriously. Her mother got the worst of it. The vendor she owed money to for the upgrades sent her to collections, tanking her credit score. With a divorce pending, her assets were frozen. I heard she's living in a guest bedroom of one of her spiritual sisters, trying to sell essential oils on Instagram to survive. I lost about $5,000 in deposits and legal fees, but it was the best money I ever spent. It was the price of freedom. I kept the dog, and he's much happier now that the apartment doesn't smell like burnt sage. I'm dating a pediatrician now who is kind, smart, and didn't ask about my aura color when I told her this story. We actually went to a casino for fun last weekend, and I walked past the slot machines. I saw a woman who looked a lot like her mother furiously feeding tokens into a machine, muttering to herself. I didn't stop. I just kept walking. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's just living a life that is completely, utterly logical and happy,